Vladimir Putin has many problems. His war in Ukraine has dragged on for 4 years longer than he planned. His economy is bleeding out. His military has lost over 1 million soldiers. And now, the country that stayed neutral for 200 years, the country that refused to pick a side in 2 world wars, has decided to start boarding his ships.
And we have the longest Baltic Sea coastline. We also see that our targeting of the shadow fleet is affecting Russia's economy and diminishing its resources.
Sweden just seized another Russian shadow fleet tanker, the 5th vessel they've intercepted in a matter of weeks, and this one might be the most brazen yet. The Jin Hui, a 182-meter tanker sailing under a Syrian flag, sanctioned by the EU, the UK, and Ukraine, was heading through Swedish territorial waters toward the Baltic Sea on the afternoon of May 3, 2026. The Swedish Coast Guard, backed by police, boarded the vessel southwest of Trelleborg and discovered exactly what they expected: a ship flying a false flag, in terrible mechanical condition, with no insurance, and almost certainly carrying Russian oil in violation of international sanctions. Swedish Civil Defense Minister Carl Oskar Bolin didn't mince words. The Coast Guard has today boarded another vessel suspected of being part of the Russian Shadow Fleet. The vessel is named Jin Hui and is suspected of sailing under a false flag. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson confirmed it, the 5th intervention in a short period of time. 5 ships, in weeks. A country of 10 million people is doing what the combined navies of the West spent 2 years debating whether to do. Sweden isn't issuing strongly worded letters, it isn't summoning ambassadors, it's sending armed Coast Guard teams onto Russian-linked tankers and towing them to port. Russia called it piracy, which is rich, coming from a country that stole 20% of Ukraine and is currently using ships registered under the flags of Syria, Comoros, and the Marshall Islands to launder oil money through front companies in Hong Kong. But sure, Sweden's the pirate. The country famous for IKEA and meatballs is apparently terrorizing the high seas. If Sweden is a pirate, it's the most well-organized, environmentally conscious pirate in maritime history. Let's get into the specifics of what the Jin Hui actually is, because the details tell you everything about how Russia's shadow fleet operates. According to the maritime executive, the Jin Hui is a tanker with IMO number 9430272. She's had multiple names, previously known as Yibao and Celsius Roskilde, which is a classic shadow fleet move. Rename the ship, re-register it under a new flag, obscure the ownership chain, and send it back out to sea carrying Russian oil that nobody is supposed to be buying. Her Equisys record, the international shipping database, indicates that her Syrian registration is likely false. The former owner shared a Hong Kong letterbox address with a sanctioned petrochemical trading company linked to Iran. The vessel was reportedly sold to undisclosed interests in December 2025. She is the only vessel associated with Jin Hui Shipping Limited, registered in the Marshall Islands, which is a corporate structure so thin that it practically screams, "We are hiding something." The Jin Hui is sanctioned by the European Union, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and Ukraine. She was sailing from the North Sea toward the Baltic, likely heading to pick up a load of Russian crude from one of Russia's Baltic ports. The Swedish Coast Guard reported that the vessel was likely carrying no cargo at the time of interception, meaning they caught her on the way to the pickup, not on the way out. That's even better from an enforcement perspective. You've prevented the cargo from being loaded in the first place. The tanker is now being towed to a berth for investigation. The crew has not been detained. A preliminary investigation into unseaworthiness and violation of the maritime code is underway. The Jin Hui isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a systematic Swedish campaign against Russia's shadow fleet that has accelerated dramatically in 2026. On March 6th, the Swedish Coast Guard stopped and detained the Caffa, a 96-meter cargo vessel suspected of transporting stolen Ukrainian grain from Russian-occupied territories. The ship's Russian captain was arrested and eventually remanded in custody. Then, on April 29th, just 4 days ago, Swedish police officially confiscated the Caffa, seizing it as evidence in a criminal investigation. That's not a detention, that's a seizure. Sweden took permanent possession of a ship that was carrying grain stolen from Ukrainian farmers. Between the Caffa and the Jin Hui, Swedish authorities intercepted and inspected 3 additional vessels, the Sea Owl and 2 others, bringing the total to 5 boardings in rapid succession. Bloomberg reported on April 24th that oil tankers from the Shadow Fleet had begun avoiding Swedish waters entirely after the country started inspecting vessels at sea. The Shadow Fleet is literally changing its shipping routes to stay away from Sweden. A country that was neutral for 200 years has become so aggressive in maritime enforcement that Russian tankers would rather sail hundreds of extra miles than risk passing through Swedish territorial waters. That rerouting costs money. Longer routes mean more fuel, more time, and more exposure to other enforcement actions. Every kilometer that a Shadow Fleet tanker adds to its journey is a kilometer that eats into Russia's profit margin. Sweden isn't just seizing ships, it's making the entire Shadow Fleet operation more expensive and more dangerous. To understand why Sweden's actions are so significant, you need to understand what the Shadow Fleet actually is, and why Russia needs it. After the West imposed sanctions on Russian oil following the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Russia assembled a fleet of aging, unregulated tankers purchased from around the world. These ships, often decades old, poorly maintained, and operating without proper insurance, carry Russian crude to willing buyers in India, China, Turkey, and elsewhere at discounted prices. The fleet allows Russia to continue selling oil above the G7 price cap, while pretending that sanctioned entities aren't involved. The scale is enormous. Lloyd's List Intelligence estimates that Russia's Shadow Fleet includes over 1,400 tankers, of which more than 900 are subject to sanctions by at least one Western entity. Putin has spent an estimated $14 billion assembling this fleet. It's not a sideshow. It's the backbone of Russia's wartime economy. Oil revenues fund roughly 40% of the Russian federal budget. Without the Shadow Fleet, Russia would lose access to a significant portion of the revenue that pays for missiles, drones, tanks, and the monthly salaries of hundreds of thousands of soldiers. But the Shadow Fleet has a vulnerability. It has to pass through choke points: the Danish Straits, the English Channel, the Strait of Gibraltar, the Turkish Straits. At each of these narrow passages, the tankers are within range of NATO naval and Coast Guard forces. They can be tracked by satellite, identified by their transponder signals, or lack thereof, and intercepted if they enter territorial waters. Sweden sits on one of the most critical of these choke points. The Swedish coastline, combined with Denmark's, forms the gateway between the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. Every Shadow Fleet tanker heading to or from Russia's Baltic ports must pass through waters that Sweden can monitor, inspect, and, as we've now seen 5 times in a matter of weeks, board and seize. And there's an environmental angle that gives Sweden additional legal ammunition. These Shadow Fleet tankers are floating ecological disasters. They're old, many are over 15 years old, well past the age when reputable operators retire them. They lack proper insurance, meaning if one of them breaks apart and dumps 100,000 tons of crude oil into the Baltic Sea, there's no insurance company to pay for the cleanup. The Baltic is one of the most ecologically sensitive bodies of water in Europe. Shallow, cold, and slow to recover from pollution. A major oil spill here would devastate fisheries, coastlines, and marine ecosystems across 8 countries. Swedish Environment Minister Magnus Hoynicke stated bluntly, "We know that there is a lot of traffic consisting of older ships sailing through Danish waters, and they pose a particular risk to our marine environment. Under the MARPOL and SOLAS International Maritime Conventions, any country can detain a vessel that doesn't meet safety and environmental standards. Sweden isn't just enforcing sanctions, it's enforcing basic maritime law. And the Shadow Fleet, by its very nature, can't comply with that law. These ships are designed to evade regulation, which means every single one of them is technically detainable the moment it enters European waters. Sweden has simply decided to start doing what the law has always allowed. The Shadow Fleet crackdown is dramatic, but it's just one piece of Sweden's transformation from Europe's most famous neutral country into one of Russia's most formidable adversaries. Sweden ended 200 years of neutrality by joining NATO in March 2024, a direct response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Since then, it has committed 80 billion Swedish kroner, approximately $7.5 billion in military support to Ukraine for 2026 to 2027 alone. That makes Sweden one of the largest per capita military donors in the world. The hardware Sweden has sent is staggering for a country of 10 million people. 44 Archer self-propelled howitzers, one of the most advanced artillery systems on the planet, capable of firing, relocating, and firing again in under a minute. The Archer has become a Ukrainian crew favorite. It can shoot and scoot faster than Russian counter-battery radar can lock on. Swedish bonus munitions, the smart artillery shells that release 2 self-guided submunitions that autonomously hunt and destroy Russian tanks from above, have been devastating on the front line. CV-90 infantry fighting vehicles, RBS-70 air defense systems, Combat Boat 90 assault craft for the Ukrainian Navy, Arthur counter-battery radars that pinpoint enemy artillery positions in seconds, thousands of 155mm artillery shells, long-range strike drones, electronic warfare systems, And the big one that's still on the table, Gripen fighter jets. Sweden's Saab JS-39 Gripen is uniquely suited for Ukraine. It can operate from ordinary roads instead of airfields, making it nearly impossible for Russia to destroy on the ground. Sweden has been training Ukrainian pilots and technicians. Defense Minister Paul Jansson confirmed discussions about transferring Gripens along with Meteor beyond visual range missiles. The transfer hasn't happened yet. NATO wants Ukraine to standardize on F-16s first, but Sweden has left the door explicitly open. In February 2026, Sweden announced its largest air defense package yet, including Saab-produced radars, electronic warfare systems, Tridon anti-aircraft systems, and additional drones. The total value of Sweden's military aid since 2022 has exceeded 80 billion Swedish kroner, roughly $7.5 billion, making it one of the top 5 military donors to Ukraine in absolute terms, and among the very top relative to GDP. And then there's the satellite. In April 2026, Sweden launched its first ever military reconnaissance satellite into orbit aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. Its mission? Monitor Russian military targets. A country that spent 2 centuries avoiding conflict with Russia is now literally watching Russian military bases from space. That's the geopolitical equivalent of your quiet neighbor suddenly installing security cameras pointed directly at your house. You know something has changed. The Caffa seizure deserves its own section, because it adds a dimension to Sweden's campaign that goes beyond oil. The Caffa wasn't carrying Russian crude, it was carrying Ukrainian grain, stolen from territories that Russia illegally occupies. Grain that was grown by Ukrainian farmers, on Ukrainian land, harvested by Russian occupation forces, and shipped out through Russian-controlled ports for sale on international markets. Sweden didn't just detain the Caffa, they confiscated it. They arrested the Russian captain, they opened a criminal investigation, and they sent a message that is, in some ways, even more powerful than seizing an oil tanker. Europe will not tolerate the theft of Ukrainian resources. Not grain, not oil, not territory. The Caffa seizure creates legal precedent. If Sweden can successfully prosecute the captain and permanently confiscate the vessel, it establishes a framework that other European nations can follow. Every Shadow Fleet vessel carrying stolen Ukrainian commodities, grain, metals, coal, is now at risk of permanent seizure the moment it enters European waters. Russia responded by calling Sweden's actions piracy and lawlessness, which is a bold position for a country that invaded its neighbor, stole its grain, and shipped it out on a vessel flying a false flag through another country's territorial waters. That's not being victimized by piracy, that's getting caught. Sweden isn't acting alone. France seized the Grinch in January, a Shadow Fleet tanker intercepted in the Mediterranean with support from the Royal Navy. Germany has detained vessels in its waters. Italy has taken similar action. The EU's 20th sanctions package, passed in April 2026, added 46 more Shadow Fleet vessels to the sanctions list, bringing the total to 632 blacklisted ships. Ukraine is hitting the Shadow Fleet directly. On the same day Sweden seized the Jin Hui, Ukrainian forces struck 2 Shadow Fleet tankers near Russia's Novorossiysk port. President Zelensky posted, "These tankers were actively used to transport oil. Now they won't be." The noose is tightening from every direction. European navies are boarding ships in the Mediterranean, the Baltic, and the North Sea. Ukrainian drones are striking them at their Russian ports. Sanctions are expanding, insurance companies are fleeing, and Sweden, quiet, neutral, meatball and furniture Sweden, is leading the charge. Robin Brooks, former chief economist at the Institute of International Finance, has argued for months that aggressively targeting the Shadow Fleet could force Russia to the negotiating table faster than any military action on the front line. The logic is simple. Russia's war costs money. Oil pays for the war. The Shadow Fleet carries the oil. Kill the fleet, kill the revenue, kill the war. Sweden apparently agrees, and it's not waiting for permission. So let's take stock of what's happened here. A country that was neutral for 200 years, through 2 world wars, the Cold War, and the collapse of the Soviet Union, has joined NATO, launched a military spy satellite aimed at Russia, committed $7.5 billion in weapons to Ukraine, sent 44 of the world's most advanced howitzers to the front line, and is now physically boarding Russian-linked ships in the Baltic Sea at a rate of 1 every few days. 5 ships seized in weeks, a Russian captain arrested, stolen Ukrainian grain confiscated, Shadow Fleet tankers rerouting away from Swedish waters, and a preliminary investigation opened today into the Jin Hui that could result in yet another permanent seizure. 200 years of neutrality, gone, because Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine and convinced Sweden that neutrality is no longer an option. So here's my question for you. If Sweden, with 10 million people and a coast guard that could fit in a parking lot, can seize 5 Russian-linked vessels in a matter of weeks, what would happen if every NATO coastal state did the same? If France, the UK, Germany, Italy, Spain, Norway, Denmark, and the Baltic states all started systematic boarding operations simultaneously? Russia's shadow fleet has over 1,400 tankers. How many would it have left after 6 months of coordinated European enforcement? And the bigger question, at what point does strangling Russia's oil revenue become more effective than sending weapons to the front line? Can you end a war by sinking the economy that funds it without firing a single shot? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you're new. This channel covers the war stories that actually matter, from the front lines to the shipping lanes. I'll see you in the next one.